Welcome back, Fabrication Nation, to Chucky Part 3. I think they only made 3 parts to Chucky, so this will be the final segment. I should be able to get this thing put back together, get it put back on the lathe, and then it'll be ready to go. So yesterday I had some trouble getting these recessed bolts out that connect the back plate to the chuck. And I was going to take those out and just do an inspection, do some cleaning, put some thread locker on them, and then put them back in. But I had some trouble, as you can see. I only got one out with the Hilti impact. Then I had to switch over to my air impact here. And I was able to get out all the rest of them except for 3. And 3 of them just would not come out. I applied some heat with my heat gun here. I didn't want to put the torch on it because I didn't want to risk warping anything or overstressing anything. So I just used the heat gun and I let it set on that back plate right around the bolt area for about a good 20 minutes. And still nothing, it wouldn't even budge. So I decided to go ahead and put them all back in. I put some thread locker on them and I put the rest of the bolts back in, made sure that they were good and tight. And then I reassembled all the jaws and I put those all back in except for one. I left one so that I could show you how that fits back together, and I'm going to do that right now. Once we get that done, I'll do a final clean wipe down. I've already cleaned up the register on the lathe that this fits to, so that's ready to go. Then we can put this thing back on and that'll be a done deal. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Okay, we've got our final pieces here to the last jaw for the chuck. So first thing I want to do is get a good wipe down on all this, make sure that any dirt and debris is off of it right before I put it in. Spray it down. So this is a track that goes inside of the jaw that actually holds the actual jaw in place, or the top of the jaw. We want to make sure that this track nice and cleaned out. The guideways. And then last we got the threads. Okay, now that we got that done, we'll set that aside. And we want to clean the actual threaded shaft. Okay, that's good to go. Now we want to clean the inside of where that goes, where this jaw tracks in. Okay, that's done. Now we want to set our threads in place, just like so. And I want to go ahead and oil it. Oil my guide tracks. Okay, it's ready to go. Now I want to clean my jaw. Now I want to get my jaw set up. So if you look at this track here, you can see you've got a square end on this side, and then you've got a tapered end on this side. And so what that is that's to help you slide the track in place. I tried putting it in this way and it makes it more difficult. Another thing is if you look underneath, the threads don't go all the way through. So if you put this in backwards, your threads will engage early on this side. They'll engage first, and then whenever you run it about halfway, your jaws will actually stop right about here in the halfway point, and you won't get full closure. Now that might be okay if you're doing a really big piece, but if you're doing a really big piece, all you simply have to do is turn your actual jaw around in the other direction, and it'll give you the clearance that you need to open up the jaws. So the correct way to install this is to insert it from the tapered end first. You won't have any engagement from the threads. It'll slide in about halfway, and then your engagement will start. And when you do it that way, your jaws will close all the way. They'll actually go past this center point. They probably go about 3/4 of an inch past the center point of the chuck. So you got plenty of room to indicate your part. So now that I know which orientation I want to go in, I need to make sure that all of my jaws are matched up properly. And the way that I'm doing the rest of them is I'm putting these teeth at the very front end as far as I can go. And that's where I set the other 3 jaws. So you want to make sure that they're all 3 exactly the same. And then when you do that, you use this block. It's got threaded holes in it, and that's what actually clamps the jaw down. So slide that right in place. I eyeball where the holes are, and then make sure my jaw's at the very forward position. And what that does is that gives me some clearance right here on the back end or on the front end of this jaw here. And so if my piece was to be clamped on right here, I would have a good 3/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch here without touching the actual jaw. So if I was to get a boring bar in there, I would have less interference back behind the chuck, back behind the jaws, than if this was positioned in this orientation here. You can see having a boring bar go up in there, you've got some clearance issues that you'd have to be aware of. So that's why I'm putting this in the very forward position. Okay, so that's in place. Got my bolts here. Okay, I want to add a little oil on the slideways here. Okay, now I'm going to slide the jaw in place. The last thing you want to make sure of is that you have the right jaw for the right guide. So if you look on here, it says number 1, and inside this chuck, right there in the corner, it says number 1, stamped with number 1. And so that's how I know that this is the proper jaw for the right guide in the chuck. Okay, I'm ready to install the jaw. Okay, that was a tight fit. The others aren't quite that tight, but it is very close tolerances in here. So now I am engaged at the very start of the threads, and now I need to use the chuck key to thread that in the rest of the way. Okay, that's full engagement there. You can see that the jaw goes clear past the center point in the chuck there. So now I want to go ahead and oil this again. And run it through a couple times. right, there it is. It's been disassembled, cleaned, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to do one last clean inside here and then close all the jaws and get ready to install it back on the lathe. All right, she's ready to go. You can see right here in the middle, fully closed. It's about 1 3/8 opening there. So that's as small as I could go with this chuck, 1 3/8. Pretty happy with it. Pretty happy with the outcome. It looks like almost a brand new chuck, I'd say. I'd say that's a happy chuck though. Ready to go on my happy lathe. Okay, now to get it back on the lathe, I'm going to use my bridge technique. So a little bit different than Keith Rucker. His bridge went down low. My bridge goes up high. But we accomplished the same thing, right? Okay, I got so excited about getting this thing back on the chuck, I almost forgot about the last step here. And that's the mounting studs. So we got 6 of them here. I cleaned up this back plate. There was a little bit of a burr right here. I filed that down, got that nice and smooth. In case you missed it on the last video, just about every one of these bolts were just hand tight. There was no tension on them at all. That's a good example of why you want to do this type of a preventative maintenance and tear down whenever you get a new machine, because these things can just loosen and wiggle out of place, and you've got a stud that's just sitting in there wallowing around. Would the chuck come off? It's probably not likely to happen 6 times, but it could distort your piece. It could make it more inaccurate. It wouldn't indicate properly. So there's a host of things that could go wrong. But I found all these bolts, I think all of them except for one, were pretty much hand tight. So I'm glad that I took the time to go ahead and do this. I found a few things that needed to be touched up, and I was able to address those issues before I actually put some work on the lathe. Now these bolts you want locked and solid, free from any movement. And these actually, they call for a little bit of movement so that they could find the locking pin and then lock in place. Okay, I got it marked right here. So this is the first bolt. So I got that bolt in there nice and tight, and you can see this still has a little bit of wiggle to it. So that's what I want. Thought I'd bring you in close for this last one here. While I was installing these, I noticed something was this line that's etched into the stud here, and I'm guessing the purpose of that is to know whenever this goes inside of the back plate here, you know that you're down low enough that this stud has got enough engagement. So that's pretty ingenious. I thought it was kind of neat. I was wondering if I am getting far enough in, or is my stud just getting tight. And I'll go back through and measure all these and make sure that they have the same, that they're sticking out the same distance. But I believe this is a reference line that tells you that you've got enough engagement for the stud. So my line just passed the back plate there, and it should tighten up. There it is, it's tight now. And now I'll back it off. Then I can insert my screw. So there it is. It's the back of the chuck ready to go on. I know this is just metal and nuts and bolts and studs and machined work, but to me this is art. This is an art piece, and not only is it art, but it's functional. I may sound kind of weird, but I could easily put a frame on this and hang this up on my wall, and I'd be happy. So would the wall hold it? I don't think so, but it sure looks cool. Okay, you're looking at the bottom of the chuck here, and just so you can see how I get everything lined up. First thing I have to do is I have to get the locking plate in the right orientation. And if you remember, I saved that number 6 for last, and so that was at the top. So I want to make sure that it matches up with the right stud that's in the right orientation that I took it off. Again, is it critical? I don't think so, but I want to put things exactly the way they came off. Okay, I'm a little high, so I'm going to lower it just a bit. Okay, I got just about the right height. Now I want to make sure that all my locking studs are in the right orientation. Okay, I'm ready to insert the chuck. Right before I go on, last step I want to do is clean off all the mating surfaces. Get the inside of this register inside the chuck. All right, now it's ready to go on. Okay, it's on now. I'll lock this first locking nut in place. Okay, so I had a little bit of trouble getting this chuck mounted, and what I figured out was that my mounting studs are recessed in too far. So it looks like that reference line really does serve a purpose. And as I was putting that reference line below the faceplate, that reference line actually is supposed to be above the faceplate. And so I fixed one stud, I pushed it in, checked it, and it locked in place properly. So then I came back, and I probably should have done this before I took the studs off. I should have taken a good measurement of the stick out, but I wasn't thinking forward ahead enough. So I came back and fixed one, and when I measure it, I'm showing 1.75, and so that's the correct length. Whenever I go back to another stud and I measure this one, I'm at 1.58. You can see that little bit of a length difference really makes a difference. So I'm going to go back through, remove the lock bolts, and then it's about one turn. It's about one turn in the other direction is where it puts me. I'll be sure and take a measurement and then go back on with the chuck. All right, I got all the bolts changed out to the proper length. I'm ready to go back on for attempt number 2. All right, here comes the trying moment. See if we did this right. All right, we got number 6 locked. Let's try number 1. All right, number 1 is locked. Okay, I got all the locking studs locked, and it looks like the fit up is really nice. As you can see, there's no gap, there's no play in the chuck. It's solid. This is now one piece of metal here. I went ahead and touched up the outside just a little bit more, gave it another good brush cleaning, and now it's ready to test out. All right, so I got a piece of drill pipe here, and I'm going to put this in there. I'm not going to indicate it in. I'm just going to use the references off the chuck here to get it close. But just to see how it grabs a hold of it and make sure that it grabs it tight and spins properly. Okay, so to open the jaws, I'm going to use my favorite chuck key here. Okay, now that I got it centered up, I'm going to use these reference line to get it as center as possible just by using my eye. Okay, so there's a mark right here, number 12, and if I look at the jaw, the chuck, if I look at the teeth on the jaws, I have these teeth here, and so that second tooth should line up with that number 12, and I think that'll put me about center. So this one's off, it's on the third tooth, so I've got to back the other side off a bit. Okay, there it is. It's not perfectly centered, but it's centered enough. At this point, you would then indicate it in to get it perfectly centered. But I'm not going to go through that trouble. I just want to make sure that everything's working properly. I'm happy with the jaws. They do take quite a bit of pressure to move back in and out. I don't know if that's just the tight tolerances of this chuck, or if there's still a little bit of surface rust there, and the more we use the jaw, hopefully that'll free up and those will loosen up a little bit. I didn't want to do too much work on those guideways because I didn't want to take too much metal off. I'd rather have a little bit more there and then let it work into place than take too much metal off and then have loose jaws. But with all that, I'm pretty happy with the fit up right now. So let's turn it on and see how she runs. Okay, I'm going to start with a spindle speed of 51. Everything's looking good. All right, let's bump it up to 112. right, very nice. All right, 182. Okay, that's it. I'm really happy with this Chuck rebuild or preventative maintenance project. I think it was necessary. I think it was needed. I learned a lot from it, and I think I have a happy machine here that's ready to get to work. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any comments. If you have any more information about this Chuck, I'd like to know. And if I did things wrong, let me know. I'm learning just like everybody else. But please share the page. Please share the videos. Click share and subscribe. Like and leave comments. Thanks for watching. Fabrication Nation. Moving on to the next one.